everyone. You're listening to Fear-Free Passive Investing, where it's all about passive commercial real estate investing and the fears that new investors have when learning about it. We interview past newbie investors and experts about their experiences, as well as give you tips on navigating different investing strategies. We believe the best things in life are on the other side of fear. So let's face those fears and jump right in. Here's your host, Lucas Miller.
All right, welcome back everyone to Fear-Free Passive Investing. My name is Lucas Miller, host of the Fear-Free Passive Investing podcast, host of the YouTube channel on the same name. Thank you so much for joining us. It's a pleasure to talk to you again this week. I'm really excited for this week's show, and it's almost like we're going backwards in time to talk about this, but it's something that I think is really important, and it's looking back at the top 3 takeaways I've had from 2020. It kind of came to me over the last 2 weeks or so, and I've really been thinking through, like, what have I carried away from that year that really defined a lot of our lives. And so I want to kind of synthesize those into the top 3 takeaways for you guys this week. But first, thank you so much for being here. I apologize it's not a video podcast again this week. I'm still, like I said last week, we just finished moving into our new house, and I don't have a studio set up. I'm in a basement with like no drywall up. So, it's not the prettiest backdrop. Unfortunately, after I finished our last studio, which is beautiful, and if you're brand new, go back and look at a few videos from a few months ago. I finished a beautiful studio only to move across the country. So we'll have to do that again this next week. But anyway, thank you for being here. I'm sorry it's just voice this time, but thank you again. A couple of housekeeping items. I really want to help reach more people in 2021. I set a couple lofty goals for this podcast, and it would really help me if you all shared this podcast. That's a really critical thing you could do. If you don't want to send it to someone, you could, if you're listening on your phone, you could just screenshot it and text it to someone you think would be, interested in passive investing. But if you don't want to do that, go to my LinkedIn page and just, leave a comment on the latest episode. That'd be huge. Or just even connect with me on LinkedIn and let me know you found me through the show. That would be awesome. So anyway, I really want to grow the show. That would help a lot. So with that, let's jump in and start talking about the top 3 takeaways from 2020. All right. I feel like this is harping at this point, but number 1 is cash is king. Reserves have always been important, but it's still critical. 2020 showed us that when you get kicked and punched and thrown to the ground, if you have cash, you can get through a lot. And these deals that can float for months up to a year, maybe even longer, with just some reserve cash, those deals are deals you want to be invested in. And yeah, they might not have the greatest return profile. They might not be the slickest deals, but there's a lot of security in knowing that you won't be foreclosed on. Reserves have always been able to float issues, because evictions were put on hold. We needed to make sure we could cover issues. And so having reserves helps a lot. And being able to generate revenue helps a lot too. So that's a 2-sided coin. You got to have cash and you got to have revenue. And there is an important medium to hold there to make sure you can, give an attractive return profile, but still having a safe deal. And so cash is king. That was a huge takeaway from 2020. Number 2, timelines are important. So without going into a huge diatribe on internal rate of return or IRR, I've done, I believe, a video, if not a video and a podcast about what is IRR. So you can go back and look at that. But timelines are important for calculating IRR. Basically, it's like the time value of your money. That's an easy way to put it. And what happens when deals get put on hold or slowed down is that return profile goes down. Timelines are critical. So if you're not paying attention to your deal, if you think like, It's no big deal. We missed a month here. We'll get back on track next month. You got to continue to pay attention to that because slower timelines will result in lower internal rates of return, which is lowering your deal. Unfortunately, sometimes it's not possible to prevent that. Sometimes it's way out of the sponsor's hands, but it's still something to pay attention to. As a passive investor, uh, making sure your sponsor team is updating you on what their timeline is pretty important. And it's okay to ask that question, like, are we on track still? At least it should be okay to ask that question. Not a lot of investors do, but that's okay. As long as it doesn't turn into an issue, I'm fine if you don't want to ask that question, but it's okay to. Um, and timelines are also important from a passive investing standpoint to make sure you're tracking your own investments. If we're behind 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, whatever, and you had counted on that cash flow or you had counted on that refinance or whatever it is, you need to be made aware of that. So you need to be asking that question. So that's why 2020 kind of showed us that timelines are really critical. And it was kind of always something we had taken for granted, to be completely honest. It was something that most deals have returned to that. So why would I think anything different? And so that slows things down significantly if you can't stay on track. And the number 3 top takeaway from 2020 is that the people you hire directly result in your success. And, that seems like a no-brainer, right? But you wouldn't believe the amount of people that can impact your deal that you have very little control over. And this is like management issues. This is staffing problems. This is consequences from COVID. This is any number of things that you cannot control necessarily as a sponsor or as a passive investor. But that's something that we kind of took away from is there are people who saw this COVID coming and thrived in it, and some that really did not thrive. In fact, the opposite. They shrunk during this. And it was a tough conversation to have with a lot of these people because, a lot of people wanted to just go on, living their life, sitting on the couch, collecting their unemployment, or, any number of things that they were doing, sit for 14 days while they pretended to have COVID. And I'm not talking about specific people here. These are stories that I have heard. And there are people that are going to thrive and there are people that are going to succeed in every scenario. And there are people that will do the opposite. And so the people that you hire really have a big impact on that. And this goes up to the passive investor, the people you hire, right? The sponsors that you choose to invest your money with. That's the same thing. There will be winners and there will be losers. And so, for me, that was a huge takeaway. We had some staffing problems at one of our properties, and we're past that. We're way past that, frankly. But it did slow us down, which gets back to number 2. But that's the beauty of this project is, we made our course correction and we're back on track. And I'm gonna be doing a bigger podcast on what all the different players that can impact a deal from a multifamily perspective, talking about property management, regional property managers, on-site property managers, assistant regional managers. There's a lot of people that are involved in your deal that you don't know about. And so I think it'd be helpful for passive investors to kind of understand how many staffing issues could happen along the way. So, we'll do a show eventually on that, but that was a huge takeaway for me. That people hiring have a lot of control over your success. So I believe 2020 is going to really go down as in history for many reasons, but really the impact on commercial real estate will have huge lasting implications for deals moving forward. And frankly, probably 2021 will as well. But 2020 definitely had some awesome takeaways as well. And we can go into that, but those aren't fun to learn from. you learn from the things that have hurt you. And luckily, we came out of 2020 very unscathed. But it's best to learn from issues before they happen. So if I can help you learn from any consequences or anything that I've experienced, I would love to talk to you. My Gmail address is fearfreepassive@gmail.com, or you can go to fearfreepassive.com and get in touch with us there. We would love to talk to you and answer any questions you have, or just connect with you. I'm going to leave my LinkedIn profile down in the description, so definitely hit that and let's connect and talk there, because that's where I'm spending a lot of time in 2021. I'm kind of trying to stay away from Facebook and Instagram and all those things that really have just become a melting pot of drama and not as fun or relaxing as it used to be. So trying to stick to more business social media this year. So definitely reach out to me there. I'd love to talk to you and connect with you and learn about your story. But if I can do anything to help, let me know. Can't wait to talk to you next week. Thanks, everyone.